We are back for Limited Supply Season 9, and we've got one of my favorite people here on today's episode, and this is Diana Cohen, the founder of Crown Affair. How did you land on hair care?
I'm obsessed with hair. The truth is that the industry has been marketing and selling us perfection, and they use such aggressive language around taming and fixing and managing. And
yeah,
I was like, what if we just took the care part of this and actually like took care of ourselves in a consistent way? It might be year 8 that people are all of a sudden like, oh, I've seen that thing, I'm gonna try it. So you have to have patience and sit on your hands and realize that no matter how much money you throw at it, you cannot artificially grow a brand. You can't really move fast and break things because those things aren't things, they're people.
If you're a seller on Shopify, if you're a merchant on Shopify, you sell e-commerce and you use Shopify, then let me tell you about an app that you absolutely need to use. It's called Aftersell. It's the fastest growing upsell app on Shopify, and it helps you do a few different things. It helps you with post-purchase upsells. It helps you with editing your checkout and also just building an optimized cart drawer. This helps you get higher AOVs, higher UPTs, and cross-sell your products based on what your customers are shopping for. If you have someone buying a backpack on your site and you also sell luggage, you can use Aftersell to cross-sell luggage or vice versa. It's used by over 25,000 brands, including Jones Road, Hexclad, Skims, True Classic, and more, and on average, their clients see an AOV boost of up to 30%. On top of that, from your order confirmation page, you can generate revenue with Aftersell's network offers. If you want to get a demo of Aftersell, go to aftersell.com/limited. Sign up now and get Aftersell free for 60 days for Limited Supply listeners. Again, that's aftersell.com/limited.
All right, we are back for Limited Supply Season 9, and we've got one of my favorite people here on today's episode. I've been wanting to get you on since the very beginning, and we finally got you. And this is Diana Cohen, the founder of Crown Affair. Diana and I have been friends for 7-ish years now. 2024, yeah, 7 years, I think, is when I met you with Liz, who's runs New York or Nowhere, and met you because you were speaking on a panel with Liz. And I thought, damn, this girl is mad smart. And I think at the time you might have been at Away.
Yeah, I think I just left Away and started my brand agency, Levitate. It was like just the cusp of that.
Yeah. So I'd love to jump into like your background first. I know you started with Into the Gloss and today you've got Crown Affair, but what happened in between and like what's the quick Diana Cohen story?
A lot of things happened in between. And first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And it has been so incredible watching you grow and blossom and become an adult officially. 28 years old. I think I met you when you were 21. You were like,
you met me when I was, yeah, either 20 or 21.
Which is nuts.
Yeah, pretty nuts.
It's incredible. I'm just very proud of you. I'm proud of us. We're doing it.
Yeah, proud of us.
I'm proud of us. Look at us. Yeah, so I'm from a small town in South Florida. Came to NYU for college, which was my dream. It was the only school I applied to, and I loved my time there. I interned. I was really lucky to intern at a lot of places when I was there. My last internship, which turned into a role, was at Into the Gloss. Pre-Glossier. It was 2012. The internet was like starting to become what the internet is as we know it. I remember transcribing interviews, setting up affiliate links. Like it was just so cool to be like, wow, you can like interview someone, put a link, and something will sell. I mean, It was very janky at the time. It was not even close to being as sophisticated as it is now with tracking, but it was just a cool time to like see how community could build on the internet. Pre-social media too. Like Instagram was like just starting, was not the world that we know today. While I was at ITG, I met this woman named Era Katz. I met her at this party at Acme. I know there's the joke that people like romantically meet at Acme. We met at Acme, but Era had started a company called Beach Mint, which was the umbrella company for all these vertically integrated celebrity brands. So it was like Style Mint with Ashley and Mary-Kate Olsen and Jewel Mint with Kate Bosworth. And it was like early D2C celebrity brands. And I met her at Acme at a party for a jewelry company that I used to intern for called Giles and Brother. And this party was fabulous. I remember like that was when I met Jenna Lyons. Like it was a very—
No way you met Jenna Lyons? I'm a huge Real Housewives of New York fan.
Are you watching this season or last season?
I'm not fully caught up, but I have seen with the new cast.
I love Jenna. I was actually having breakfast with her the morning that she signed her contract
No
for the Real
way.
Housewives. And she's like, is this crazy? I'm like, girl, you have to do
That
this
is
thing.
sick.
She's incredible. She's been an inspiration for a long time. But yeah, so that party, I met this magical, mythical creature named Era, who was like a real life Olsen twin to me, is like the only, she still is a real life Olsen twin is the only way I can describe her. And she was like, I'm going to hire you one day. I don't know for what. I was like, cool, never see you again. She went back to California. And she called me a couple of months later and was like, I'm starting this mobile shopping app. It was called Jello Labs at the time. It eventually became Spring. For any e-com nerds out there, you might remember Spring. It was David and Alan Tish's mobile shopping app. Era was the other co-founder, and then Octavian Kustash was the technical founder. He literally created Gmail at Google.
Wow.
Brilliant tech guy. So yeah, no, that was amazing. It was an Eng-led org. That was where I became obsessed with just like Shopify was a baby. It was like Magento and Demandware and just like the early days of like D2C e-commerce. And there were like 3 of us in the marketing team. So we were not the shiny stars. It was the engineers that really, and I think that kind of changed my life being in an Eng-led org versus just like working in content or working in beauty or working in fashion, but like being a part of that ecosystem and candidly meeting all those brands. Like that's how I met the Buck Mason guys early days. Like
Eric and Sasha.
dude, like the business was tiny.
Yeah.
And they were just like these 2 Midwestern guys out in California. And now it's like insane what they've built, you know?
Yeah. And they're just great dudes.
Amazing. Have you had them on here?
I haven't, but my favorite story about Eric and Sasha was we randomly got connected a few years ago, like right when COVID had started. We were on the phone. He could see my back was uncomfortable on my desk chair, and he sent me a Herman Miller chair that night.
Shut up.
Because he was like, I see you're uncomfortable.
This is Eric.
Yeah.
100% Eric. That's textbook.
It was insane. And then he sent me like a nice one for my bedroom.
They're the
it was
best.
amazing.
They're the best. They've been a huge part of the Crown Affair journey. And
That's amazing. I could definitely see a lot of similarities between their brand and the Crown Affair brand.
What they've done is so incredible, and I think it's such a testament to building things in an intentional way and taking your time, because at the same time it was like the Everleens, the Warbies, all the, you know, these like consumer brands that had raised a ton of money, and they never did that. They took like a tiny bit of capital, and we actually have some of the same first investors. Shout out to Pat Finn, who may or may not be listening to this, but he's like one of the best consumer investors in San Francisco. He did Tatcha early days. He's done Buck Mason, Crown Affair. But yeah, I just met so many. I met Ty early days of OV. Emily was starting to work on Glossier. So it was a really exciting time in consumer. I was there for 2.5 years. I was introduced to Tamara Mellon, who is the founder of Jimmy Choo. She was looking to launch her own luxury, direct-to-consumer shoe company under her own name. Obviously, Jimmy Choo is like iconic.
Iconic.
And it was incredible doing the go-to-market strategy with her. It was just like an education, because at that time too, like I was coming from like D2C budgets in terms of campaigns where you like grab a product, grab a poster board, and like she was hiring like Paula Kadaki and like Vogue photographers. And like, I remember like negotiating like usage rights, you know, and this was when like none of that stuff was happening.
Yeah, that sounds a lot earlier than when I remember usage rights being like a thing.
Totally. It was really cool working with her. I knew I didn't want to move to LA or kind of do accessories full time. It just wasn't as exciting to me. I was then introduced to Jen and Steph from Away. I was like introduced to them on a Thursday. I like met them in their like tiny Green Street office, and by Tuesday I had started work. So I was the 8th employee at Away, and I was head of partnerships there, which was an amazing experience for a lot of reasons. I think very, you know, it was also tough. I honestly, I met so many incredible people there, and I feel like that was my little Avengers team when I was launching Crown Affair. Was like our creative director Show. I brought in our head of PR Ben. I brought in our head of social Kelsey. So my whole little Avengers team for Crown Affair was Away people. But between Away and Crown Affair, I launched my own brand agency called Levitate, which is what I got the Forbes 30 Under 30 for. And I was doing go-to-market strategy and influencer for brands like Outdoor Voices, was running ambassador and affiliate for them, running the Slack channel. That became the second largest revenue driver for the business at the time. Like it was the good days of you know, influencer. It's a little different now. Worked with Harry's, was brought in by Jeff and Andy to launch their women's line Flamingo, and did the D2C.
I remember this now.
Yeah.
I totally remember this.
Yeah.
This was around, I think, when we met.
Yeah. Well, it was a little after we met, but it was like, this was 2018. Maybe that was that. Maybe that
it was around
time.
that 2017, 18 time.
Did the go-to-market strategy for Flamingo, and then also the national rollout in Target, which was really fun. I also worked with Buck Mason, became a client at that point, doing the retail rollout. Worked with a baby food company called Yumi. I worked with The Wing to launch their merch, because obviously not everyone had access to a Wing location or could join from a membership perspective. So did the DTC launch for merch. And yeah, I learned a ton. It was a very, very fun time.
That's amazing. When so now going into Crown Affair today, how big is Crown Affair?
From a revenue perspective or a team perspective?
Either, whatever you'd like to share.
Yeah, so I launched Crown Affair about 4.5 years ago. I was very much working on it nights and weekends during my Levitate days because you have all these learnings, like working for a decade in the consumer space. And I knew I didn't want to like raise a ton of money. I also kind of knew, I think the writing was very much on the wall that like the internet was changing. And I think TikTok was Musical.ly. It's not like TikTok didn't exist. Right. But like people that I used to just be able to like gift product to, and they do like a static post and it was free. Like you just started to see the landscape change. CACs were starting to get really expensive. I think people started to just see the writing on the wall. And then also like, I don't know if there's anyone out there listening who's a consultant or freelancer and you like kind of feel like you're giving away your special a little bit. Like I was just like, wow, I'm so happy that I'm working with these innovators to levitate them. But like, I think I'm kind of ready to be the innovator now.
Yeah.
So I started working on Crown Affair nights and weekends, got my team together. Sho was my first call. He was our creative director. Sho is an incredible Japanese designer. He's known for painting on the New York Times, the sunrise and sunset. I don't know if you've seen his work before. Yeah. So he and I literally would like sit on the floor in his Greenpoint studio, just like building out the whole brand universe of Crown Affair. And like he worked with me before I even raised a cent, you know. Obviously I was like, once I raise money, I'll pay you, I promise. Yeah. But that was kind of the early days. It was just bringing in friends to like build out the PR architecture, work on the product development with my friend Dan. Like he's a bioengineering chemist. He worked at supply chain at McKinsey, like just bringing in people to be like, this could be cool.
Yeah.
And then we launched it January 28th of 2020. So 6 weeks before the pandemic. So in January next year, we'll be 5 years old and we're about 16 people full time right now. And we'll do like 15 to 18 million this year in revenue.
Wow. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How did you, so like most people when they start a company, it's based off their prior experience, but everything you did in the past was brand marketing or, you know, partnerships and community or content. Like how did you land on hair care?
I'm obsessed with hair. Hair for me is like, was the thing that was just my love. Like people are obsessed with skincare or they're obsessed with makeup, and figuring out how to achieve what I call this no makeup look, which I have right now, which is this like art of the air dry, was everything I tried to do. Because don't get me wrong, I love a blowout. And there, even pre-COVID, the culture around blowouts and dry bar, like you would talk to women, I would talk to my friends, and they were so reliant on that in order to figure out their hair. And I think for some reason, hair care, a lot of people just come from a really disempowered place and like a place of shame. It's not for some reason. The truth is that the industry has been marketing and selling us perfection, and they use such aggressive language around taming and fixing and managing. And
yeah,
I was like, what if we just took the care part of this and actually like took care of ourselves in a consistent way? And I think it's more of a skincare approach versus a makeup approach, which is like consistent daily rituals. Right. I had a Google Doc that had the 12 things that I was like, these are baseline things. Like kind of how you would have a moisturizer or cleanser or a toner and whatever. Like it was that. It was like invest in a really high quality hairbrush. I think somewhere along the way, we forgot about brushing our hair for health. Like it helps physically exfoliate your scalp. It moves the natural oils from your scalp to your strand, like making your hair healthier. It stimulates your scalp for growth. And so many people just like don't brush their hair at night.
I've literally never thought about brushing my hair as like a thing that actually helps my scalp or my hair.
It's so important. And like you're still relatively young, but like most people don't actually really think about their hair until something happens to it.
Yeah, or they lose it.
Yeah. And that's when you come from a place of like fixing and solution oriented versus like taking care of the hair that you have.
Right.
Or even something as simple as like using a hair towel. Like most people just get out of the shower and use like a cotton towel and they're like, this is fine. But like my analogy is always like, it's like cooking meat with a meat thermometer. Like, yeah, you can cook your meat without like a little thermometer, but like once you use a thermometer and you like put it in the meat, you're like, oh, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Like
you're never going back.
You're never going back.
Yeah, totally.
And that's how I feel about a hair towel. So, and then even with like shampoos, and the nerdy thing is I just like geeked out on this stuff. Like I've read so many books on hair, the history of hair. One of my friends has worked at Pixar for 15 years and he works on the hair simulators.
No way.
Yeah. And I would chat with him about hair as this character and this identity. And he was telling me when he worked on The Incredibles that they actually developed new technology so that one of the characters in The Incredibles is the girl Violet. they literally developed new technologies so they could innovate the storytelling around her hair because it's such a huge part of her identity and personal growth, going from like hiding behind her hair to pulling it back and being proud of it. So I just think hair is such a cool part of how we move through the world. And coming from the brand marketing side and being a marketer and a storyteller, like candidly, the brands I was using, it was not a vibe. Like it's these beautiful luxury salon brands started by a French stylist. Like everything is like French and fabulous and beautiful, but like that's not how I actually talk about hair or how I don't know, like the components, everything's just so dated.
Yep.
And I wanted to create a brand that had the level of product excellence as the brands I was using, like an Oribe or Christophe Robin or Kerastase, but was clean.
Right.
Like you could not find clean and actually prestige in the same sentence in hair care. And everything that was clean was very like Whole Foodsy or like very like treatment fruit wasn't like a vibe, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, it was about building out the brand that I actually wanted to recommend to my friends.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to dive in a little bit, just asking you a few questions about Crown Affair. Then I want to talk about brand building because I don't think there's anybody. There's maybe like 2 other brands that I admire that have built a brand like Crown Affair. Then I'd love to talk about partnerships, content, retail, and finish with community.
Let's do it.
So starting with Crown Affair, how hard is it to build a great product in the hair care space? And what do you feel like you focused on, you started touching on it, that like some of the large incumbents either don't or can't or won't focus on?
It is very hard to make an excellent product in beauty, period. I always say that most of beauty is giving you Jamba Juice, and we want to give you the Erewhon smoothie. Mm-hmm. And it's not that they're not all smoothies. It's just they're different ingredients and they do different things to your body. And there's a lot of like okay-ish stuff out there. And if you want to overconsume and you want to try everything, then I think that gives you access to it. But for me, I literally could not find hair care products that felt and smelt and touched the full experience as luxurious as these prestige salon brands, but were actually good for your hair. And I think skincare and color cosmetics have been much more democratized over the last decade. Like you wouldn't really launch a makeup brand now where the products didn't have skincare benefits, right?
Yeah,
like
totally.
20 years ago, you could totally launch a product that like was foundation that wasn't actually good for your skin. Now it's like you have to launch a foundation that has like hyaluronic acid or something in it. And that is very much what we're trying to do in hair care.
Got it.
So it takes time. We work with chemists outside of our contract manufacturers. A lot of these brands just go straight to CMs, contract manufacturers, and they all kind of give you the same thing with like a different label and a different marketing level story. And especially like celebrity brands that are like there's not a lot of innovation out there is the truth. It's a lot of the same. By the way, if I was a celebrity and had a platform, I'd probably just do that too.
Yeah.
And also like I have respect for these legacy brands in hair care. Like I probably also wouldn't change it if I had like $1 billion hair oil SKU. Why would I not have 28 ingredients in there that aren't that good for you if it's selling because of distribution? So for me, it was about creating super high quality, clean products. And it really is, it's not easy to make great products, but it's possible with the right team around you.
Yeah, there's so many, I feel like there's so many challenger brands in the alcohol space that came up over the last 4 or 5 years. And like White Claw's a good example, or basically like if you just look at the hard seltzers, and now you see Topo Chico coming out with their version and Simply Lemonade coming out with their version to compete now that they've realized the category's growing. Do you feel like that's about to happen in the hair care space?
I do. I feel like it's already happened. There's so many more brands that have entered the market since we've launched, but I do feel like the core differentiator and like product aside, to me, excellent product is table stakes, like winning beauty awards, having people recommend it to friends. It's like, especially the word of mouth. Like if you don't have a good product, you're not going to be around in 6 years.
Yeah.
So that to me is baseline. What's really interesting is when I launched Crown Affair, there were a lot of brands that launched within the year that kind of felt similar, but they were really messaging around clean and sustainable as the core brand pillars. And I've said this from day one, those are not brand pillars.
Yeah, no one cares.
Those are product promises.
Right.
And if you do not have the brand foundation, the entire Crown Affair brand is actually anchored around time and the concept of time. So you'll see like our trademark is take your time. And it is about hair. It's about a couple of things. It's about time being the ultimate luxury that we have and us doing the work to present you the most elegant solution.
Yeah.
It's also about finding a ritual and slowing down and like closing your eyes and brushing your hair for a few moments and making wash day something to look forward to.
Yeah.
But the subtext is also take your time back. Like the fact that we have a dry shampoo that like it is so, even if I had nothing to do with this company, the dry shampoo is just like, it's next level. When I was using aerosol dry shampoos, which aren't good for your hair, or clogging your hair follicles, are not.
Also, first of all, for anybody who's within 10 feet, they're disgusting. They're so nasty.
Disgusting. I cannot believe people still use aerosol dry shampoos.
Blows my mind.
Blows my mind. I actually can go a few more days because of our dry shampoo, especially if my hair is blown out. I can literally go 7 or 8 days without wash, and it doesn't feel gross.
Wow.
It's crazy. But yeah, the brand and the brand visual literacy and the brand system, like, I'll walk around Sephora, I'll walk around beauty retail, I walk around anything, and I'm just like, you can tell who has a strong foundation and the ones who are leaning on these brand pillars that are so table stakes and feel very 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit? So like brand, you said brand pillars, brand story, and there was another one.
The visual literacy?
Yeah, the visual literacy. I've never heard that before.
Oh, it's the most important thing.
Tell me.
It's part of why I launched with a combination of tools and formulas. So particularly investors thought I was like a little unhinged launching a hair care line without a shampoo and conditioner. When I first was fundraising at the end of 2019, the 2 big brands at the time in like the fundraising space were brands called Prose and Function of Beauty.
Right.
Both like...
Those were like VC darlings.
Correct. Yeah. Like spending so much money on paid marketing, which we'll talk about shortly, and the philosophy there. But also just like shampoo brand, like you're picking your shampoo, you're customizing it. First of all, I didn't even know what I wanted in a shampoo and conditioner. And that to me is like, goes back to my Into the Gloss days of like living in the comments section and actually talking to people about what they wanted before launching it. But also, I just knew as a marketer, like, first of all, getting people to make content in the shower is like a whole other level. Like, it's one thing to put blush on your face and like show the result, but like hair care has lived in the bathroom and particularly the shower for so long. And I wanted to create these little scrunchies, create the towel, like selfies with the towel, these beautiful combs handmade in Switzerland, or these brushes that like creating a visual literacy of a brand where you're like, oh, that's Crown Affair,
Interesting.
Yeah.
There was I think he was either like one of the early chief brand or chief marketing officers from American Crew.
Yeah.
And one of the things I remember he mentioned was a sign of a really good brand is when you could look at their photography and you don't know when it was taken. Was it taken yesterday or 10 years ago? And I feel like your photography is a lot like that.
Totally. And to talk about brand codes in general, I feel like when you Chanel is the best at this, right? Like if you see chains on a strap, or you see pearls, or you see tweed, even if they're not Chanel, you think it's Chanel.
Yeah.
And that's how you know you've built an excellent brand. And I very obviously Chanel's like hundreds, it's not, I'm comparing in that way, but when other brands are doing the Crown Affair thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, that feels so Crown Affair, whether it's like the photography, visual literacy, the packaging, the components, the way that they integrate stuff. And I think that's how you've built a strong brand system, is even when other brands, are inspired by you, it still feels like you're the originator.
Yeah. When the Met Gala happened and you immediately recognized the hair towel on Doja Cat, do you think that played into that visual literacy?
Yeah, I was by the way, I had no idea that was happening. And I was literally making dinner with my husband, and all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up. And I'm like, what happened? And my team was like, is Doja Cat on the red carpet at the Met Gala? I'm like, before we post, before we do anything, we need to confirm. And we hard confirmed with her stylist. And it felt like a very iconic moment, because to bring it full circle, we shot our first campaign that we ever shot was with a photographer, Vanessa Granda, who I worked with at Away, and it was show, and my friend Juliana Salzar, who is an epic stylist. She like created the whole vibe of Aimé Leon Dore, and like,
wow.
She is probably one of the best. She has the best taste of anyone I know, if I'm being honest. We shot this photo of the towel. It was inspired by Vermeer's Girl with the Pearl Earring. There are so many art historical references within Crown Affair that are like little Easter eggs. And even the name, which is like a whole other story of how my husband and I met at MoMA. But like the people who are following, there's little nuggets there. Anyway, we shot this towel with this beautiful pearl earring. We used it for our first out-of-home campaign ever too, for our wheat pasting campaign. And like, that was one side, this like iconic towel moment with the pearl earring. The other side of the campaign just said, take your time. And I remember even like the out-of-home agency being like, there's no code. Like there's like, what are you doing here? Like this is
what's the call to action?
Like we were acting like we were Bottega Veneta or Celine, you know what I mean? Just being like, us, like just let it rip. And people thought we were crazy, but it was so powerful, that moment. And I think it really, again, we're not Celine or anything, but like it gave that very iconic moment. And seeing Doja on the red carpet with like the identifiable Crown Affair towel with the strap in the back. And there were so many memes around that night just from publishers being like, when I say I'm on my way or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that to me is like the luxury and the time element of Crown Affair, which is like the embodiment of taking your time.
Yeah. Okay. So using that to jump into brand. So I remember that night, I remember texting you something like, you know, there's no Facebook ads brand that's on the Met Gala tonight.
Yes.
It's only like brands. And I guess one thought, so like we work with so many different brands, from the Taco Bells of the world to the Jolies to everything in between. And it's like a lot of what we do is very much performance marketing, customer acquisition, customer retention. Everything is numbers driven. So how do you like walk in to a room and you're like, guys, this, you know, we're not like, there's no Facebook ads running for Crown Affair right now. We're going to build this brand. It's going to take time, but we're going to end up in Sephora and it's going to be an iconic brand. Like, how do you justify that? And then I'm curious, like tactically, how do you do that? Because from my standpoint of not knowing how you did that, it feels like it's either the 0.1% chance it works or the 99.9% chance it doesn't work. And from like even like an investor standpoint, that's a hard thing to bet on.
Totally. So many thoughts. Okay. The first thing I always used to say, and I still say it, is like, you need to know where you're aiming the rocket ship before you put the fuel in it. And I feel like the first 3 years of Crown Affair was like, where is this ship going? So that to me, especially coming from all these like high growth at all costs consumer brands that like would spend $1 million by the time we started talking just now, you know? And I think we all inherently know that the value of that customer isn't there. It worked when it was just really cheap and easy to acquire people online. But now you really need, to me, it's just like, it really is as simple as like creating a product that people actually want. Like not forcing people to buy something. Like I probably shouldn't give shade, but there's a shoe brand out there that I'm like, why do people want to see their toes through this shoe? Like the wool. I'm just like, who? No one actually, well, I know there are probably guys that are like, I live in these shoes, but like, I don't know. I just think there's something about like creating something that people actually want and desire. And I was talking to the LVMH team the other day and like, they were like, there's just this desirability element of something that like you can't fake. You can't pay for it. And the other thing is like time, it doesn't matter how much money, how many resources, like the truth is the most valuable thing for a brand in terms of acquiring customers is time in market. Like I will tell you this because I think hair care is the slowest category of beauty. Like the amount of people I talk to, customer interviews, friends, customers, whatever it is, they're like, yeah, I'm just finishing whatever's in my shower. Or like, I've been buying It's a 10 for 15 years or Moroccan oil. Like it takes people so much time to change their behavior. People are, I think nobody knows Crown Affair. Like the people who get it and know it, but like it might be year 8 that people are all of a sudden like, oh, I've seen that thing, I'm going to try it. So you have to have patience and sit on your hands and realize that no matter how much money you throw at it, you cannot artificially grow a brand. And I think I saw that firsthand working at these businesses. It's like, you can't really move fast and break things because those things aren't things, they're people.
Yeah.
And like the other thing too, it's like, customers go in and out. Like you can't just acquire all these customers and hope they're going to stay. Like you have to give them a reason to stay. And, the answer to your question is like, there's so much I left on the table. Like I'm talking to you in a way that's like, this is not perfect. And I wish I had the gene in me. Like I always joke with you. I'm like, I feel like we have two opposite sides of the brain and together we make like one perfect human, which is like, I'm creating and making assets and storytelling and showing up in the world IRL for me and for us. And it's so authentic to who I'm building this for. And I wish I had the gene to make like an ad that like acquired people that was like kind of corny or like tricky. But like, my whole thing is like, I don't want anybody to order Crown Affair and feel like they were tricked.
Yeah.
I want you to order Crown Affair and it shows up in the box and you open it and you're like, whoa, this is nice. And I'm really proud to own this. And it's a little bit harder and a little bit slower. And that's a whole other conversation around investor philosophical alignment. And even from day one, it was really interesting because when I raised my seed round, I've probably taken, in the last 5 years, I've probably taken over 600 investor meetings at least. And sometimes you leave those meetings and you're like, I'm good if I never see this person again.
Yeah.
And then there's some where you're like, oh wait, they get it. And I think I'm going to give a shout out to Andrew Mitchell, who was my lead seed investor. He has a firm called Brand Foundry Ventures. He invested in me, Crown Affair, Vacation, and Starface.
Wow.
Within the same month in 2019.
All like very strong brands.
Correct. And all very different brands.
Yeah.
Like very different. And I always joke whenever investors, I'm like, just look at whatever Andrew Mitchell was doing in like the back half of 2019 if you're like a later stage investor. Because I remember him saying to me, he's like, I don't want you to spend $1 million to make $1 million. Like, go slow. That is not a real business. Like, take your time. The reason that I raise money is just because building a prestige brand is not a cheap endeavor, and going into places like Sephora is not a cheap endeavor. But when it comes to the marketing piece, we've been really economical around building the brand and bringing customers in through word of mouth, activations, really thoughtful brand moments versus this like, I mean, at early days, I think we were spending like $10K a month on paid marketing. That's like nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing, you know? And even now, like, I'd have to check with my team the latest numbers, but it's still like 50K. It's not.
Yeah, there's no Facebook ads running right now.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
That's crazy, by the way.
Have you ever wondered how brands like Jones Road and Hexclad are optimizing their customer journeys by increasing AOV and post-purchase upsells? Well, they all use Aftersell. Aftersell is used by over 25,000 brands and has been shown to boost your AOV by up to 30%. Not only that, but they also have a proprietary network offers feature that has generated tons of net revenue for brands like Perry Ellis, True Classic, and American Eagle. This allows you to drive sales on your own site and add additional revenue through showing ads in your post-purchase funnel. If you're interested to learn more, get a demo at aftersell.com/limited. Sign up now and get 60 days of Aftersell free for limited supply listeners. Once again, that's aftersell.com/limited.
So you mentioned rocket fuel earlier, like putting the fuel in before you aim the rocket. I'm assuming you worked with like a branding agency for Crown Affair?
Just Shibuya.
Just show.
Yeah.
So if you're working with one person or a branding agency, I feel like a lot of times brands will work with somebody and expect that the brand on the other side comes out fully done and in this beautiful, really big brand book. But like, what is some of that fuel that goes in, even in those early days when you still don't really fully know, or maybe you did, and that's why it turned out so strong?
You know, the brand working with Show, and then he was working with this guy named Cole, who I literally just had coffee with, who's an incredible copywriter. And like figuring out the brand system where we're like, this is actually going to last and be timeless and it's not trendy. It takes so much restraint and sitting on your hands to not jump on trends.
I mean, you can't really jump on trends
No.
or trendy things or trendy fonts, colors,
I
styles.
used to joke, I used to play a game where like, there was a time in like 2020, early pandemic, where people would just like superimpose their image into like 90s movies. Like it would be like Cher Horowitz would like this product. And I'm like, I don't know what any of these brands are.
Right.
And you see, by the way, like you see brands mimic and copy you, and then eventually they get off of it because they're just on to the next thing. It's really required sitting on our hands. I also think too, it's honestly trickier now. I've always assumed the customer's smart. And I think this is like, I remember I was listening to a podcast, Armchair Expert. He was interviewing BJ Novak, who was a writer on The Office. And he was saying how like before he got The Office and started working on it, he was hired for this like Fox show that was like laugh track, like 8 p.m., like prime slot. And so let's call that distribution. You're going to get viewers. But like it wasn't really good. Mm-hmm. And I think The Office, he was like, that role would have like paid my mortgage, would have like paid for this, like all this stuff. And then I think The Office, he said, was paying him like $7,000 to like an episode, which is like not whatever it is. And he took the Fox job because he like had to pay his rent. And he's like, I know this is obvious and I know this is like basic, but like I got to do this because it's like, I got to make money right now. And he ended up calling his agent, like crying days later, he was saying, because he's like, I got to do the thing that's true to me. So I ended up working on The Office. The Office took a few years to take off. Like it was not this runaway hit. And now it's like, I think the
Iconic.
most watched show on Netflix ever.
Yeah.
And the show that the Fox show, I forget what it was, but like no one talks about it now.
Right.
You know, and I think that's a really good analogy for building a brand, which is like, you got to trust your gut and build the thing, even if it feels like not the thing right now, because they assumed the audience was smart and was in on the joke. And I think the tricky thing now, and I'm going to like eat my own words, which is like, I know that our audience is smart. The problem is with the world we're living in now and the TikTok of it all and just the inundation of like brands and random average stuff. Even the smart customer doesn't have an attention span. And that's the thing that I think excellent brands are solving for right now.
Yeah. I'm curious, like I always think, I could immediately picture the Crown Affair Hotel or the Crown Affair Airplane.
Yeah.
Like, is that the true test in your mind of a good brand, or like how do you decide what's a good brand to you as somebody who's built one?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's about being able to fold the brand visual literacy over totally different categories. Like we talked about this, it is about the product. The product's the most important thing, but at the same time, like it's not about the product at all. And I always say, it's like, would you want to wear merch with the brand on it, you know, and feel proud of it? I also think it's a feeling. Like, and luxury brands do this the best. And I think like Loewe and Jonathan Anderson is like someone I reference all the time. Jacquemus does a really fun, playful job with it as well in terms of like all of their marketing strategy. For me, I'm mostly referencing luxury brands. And even like Loewe is a great example as you're building out a brand. Like we have our logo, which is Crown Affair. We have a couple versions of it that are based off Brancusi shapes and Ed Ruscha works. And then we also have our mark, which I could show you photos. We went through hundreds of marks to get it there. And I think Loewe does an amazing job with how they leverage their brand mark and how they leverage their logo. And if you like just saw that mark in the context of a cafe, like would you feel connected to it?
Yeah. I remember when we ran into each other at the cafe like a month ago.
Yeah.
I saw the MZ Wallace thing,
Yes.
the collab you did.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that MZ Wallace was the name of that brand, but I knew that style right away.
Oh, totally. So iconic. And they're like a heritage brand, kind of. They've been around for almost 30 years. And, you know, that's an interesting strategy too. Like, what do partnerships look like? I've always been obsessed with partnerships. And for me, it's about working with brands that have been around for a long time and stand for something in terms of a customer acquisition. Because it's like us entering that fold and meeting that customer, to me, is so much more powerful than just running a Facebook ad.
Yeah. How does that happen? Like that's such an iconic brand. Like, do you just DM somebody? Do you email somebody? Like, what does that message even say?
Oh, I'm so ashamed. I'm like savage. I've been this way, even with the Way days. I would just be like, hey, X, like, let's make a thing. You know, now it's relationships that I've had for a long time. But yeah, it's so funny. This is random. I guess I'll give it away because it probably won't happen. But I'm obsessed with Jellycat, the like stuffed animal brand. And they're doing all this stuff for the Paris Olympics. And I'm like, I kind of want to make a Jellycat stuffed animal.
Yeah.
So I like literally was on the train on the way here and was like, I'm going to just DM them.
Yeah.
Half of the time you like meet someone and someone's a marketer and they connect you. But MZ Wallace happened super organically. I mean, I've shopped the brand for years. I travel with their bags and I can't even remember. I think I was like connected to a marketing girl there. Now a lot of these marketing girls are Crown Affair customers, so that's helpful. But yeah, whether it's like Goop or Rosie Huntington or DS and Durga, who we worked with a few years ago and have fun stuff in the works with them, like Kavi and David, I think we were just DMing because we're like, I love your brand. Like, this is cool. Let's play in each other's worlds, you know?
Yeah. I get DMs when I've appeared on your story. Do you think having a personal brand as a founder, whether that was intentional or not, has been advantageous?
Totally. First of all, I love that. And I think the DMs are where it's at. Like,
For sure.
That's why I love and use Instagram. First of all, I think it's about quality of people and engagement than just follower. As you know, I was not an influencer prior to launching Crown Affair. I'm still not an influencer, but my following has grown and like that direct connection is everything. I also think as a founder, like the reality is like influencer marketing is essential for businesses today. And I genuinely think I operate differently because I understand what it takes to make content.
Yeah.
Like I have such a different perspective and connection and relationship with these women, mostly women. So when we host an event in LA, we did an event a couple weeks ago at Nobu for the launch of our air dry mousse. And like the goal of that event was EMV. Like it was all about earned media value. And we've done beautiful dinners with the Jenna Lyonses of the world and the Gwen, you know, like that vibe. But it's all about reaching new audiences now. And like being able to be at Nobu and like being in those TikToks and like commenting with the girls, like it makes such a huge difference in terms of how I approach the community strategy.
Yeah, I've worked with so many people who like they want that. In fact, that's how I got the job at Hint at first, was because the founder was like, I want to be famous. Yeah. And but they don't put the work in, and you make like a bajillion TikToks and you know, maybe not all of them hit, but like you're putting in the work to make those TikToks happen.
It is all about consistency. I don't want to say lucky, but I've been lucky that I have a few that have like hit and have like 4 or 5 million views. And I think that like gives you a little bit of confidence where you're
Yeah.
like, even if this one gets like 1,300 views or 800 views, like I've had some
Yeah,
success.
you're like, I know I can do it if I really want to.
I can totally do it. But truthfully, it's so random and fully demoralizing, especially as a human who's like actually running a business. Like, I don't know if customers know this or not, but it's like, I'm fundraising, I'm managing a team, I'm running a P&L, like I'm going to Sephora's, like I'm educating, I'm doing training. Like content is a sliver of my day to day. And I'm like genuinely envious and impressed by the founders that are influencer founders. I don't think like one is easier or harder. It's just not my core competency.
Yeah.
And man, if I like woke up every day and my whole thing was just making content, like that would be, I'm sure I'd crush it. Although maybe it's hard. It's honestly harder than it looks. And I think if you're a founder out there who's listening and like, you know that you need to be a little bit more external facing, it wasn't a massive leap because I love doing stuff like this. Like give me a podcast, give me the Today Show, give me live TV, give me a panel like that. I'm love. And I think is really helpful for the business because when people are actually taking time to listen to your story, they can like fall in love with the brand and fall in love with you. I think social media, not including YouTube, is trickier because you've got like 15 seconds.
Totally.
And you just got to throw stuff at the wall, and really like everything in life, it's just about showing up every day, putting on the metaphorical gym clothes, posting, and like it's so hard at the millennial in me, but it's just like not being precious about it, you know?
Okay, jumping into some of the retail stuff. Are you exclusively in Sephora?
Yeah, so from a like large retailer perspective, we work with strategic retailers like Goop and Violet Grey and things like that, but our main primary retailer is Sephora. Yeah.
And why Sephora? Was that the goal from day one?
Because they're the best.
Yeah, they are the best.
No, it was the goal from day one-ish. I feel like, you know, hilarious. The answer is it wasn't the goal from day one, because I feel like a lot of founders start brands and they're like, I worked at Sephora, you know, in the same way that you have brands that are started from people who were like merchants at Target. Like, the truth is I would not have designed the brand the way that I did if I knew we were going into Sephora.
Really?
Oh my gosh, Show is an artist. Like if you really think about it, the amount of times I walk into Sephora and I'm like, there's 40 things we could do to optimize the obviousness of this. But we're a very, like, I love negative space on packaging. Like, I love the fact that it's like all minimal and Crown Affair green and beautiful. The hair care is the opposite. Hair care is like bottles with 7 million colors and a million typefaces and fonts. And like, that's actually helpful for the customer. It helps guide them through the experience. And I think when I started Crown Affair, like I thought about retail from like a building the business perspective, but in terms of like the brand itself, we're kind of a breath of fresh air in those environments. So the answer to that's no, but it's also yes, because I knew that in order to grow the business. And I think honestly, working with Harry's really opened my eyes to just how important distribution was. And like, I always joke that that was the first brand I ever worked with that my 80-year-old father actually knew. Yeah. Like I'd be like, I work at Away and I work at Outdoor, all these cool brands. And he's like, funny. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's so true.
No idea. Harry's was the first brand that he was like, okay, I listened to like NPR and I've heard podcasts because they had the you know, the money to spend on podcasts like that. And like my dad strolls into Target with my mom and like would see it. So Harry's opened my eyes to just the power of like personal care distribution, being at Target, being at Walmart, being at Costco, like now they're everywhere, you know? And it's just like, you're not able to grow a business unless you meet the customer where they are.
Totally.
And it's interesting because hair care, you would argue, and rightly so, that salon distribution is the right strategy. It still is, I think. Most people find out about products through their stylist. However, I do think the culture has changed since the pandemic. I think like the effective brands that sell through salons are the legacy brands that have been there for a really long time.
Yeah. I don't even know that I'd trust what my hairstylist like at a salon tells me.
Yeah.
I'm like, what kind of commission are you making?
Totally.
How much are you getting off the back of that?
Totally. No, and the culture has changed, and we do have case studies in hair care and Sephora in particular. I think Jen Atkins' company, Way, love Jen, and then Nancy Twine from Briogeo. Yeah. They are the case studies and the blueprint of like, you can build a great hair care brand within the Sephora environment. And you know, Sephora is done. It's a really all boats rise situation. Like, it's a makeup business.
Right.
I buy most of my makeup at Sephora. I have for a long time. I think we are this next generation, and they did this and they proved this out with skincare, with Drunk Elephant, with Tatcha, with Youth to the People, with Glow Recipe. Like, we're now that generation for hair care.
Totally. Do they give you much information? Like, do they tell you how many, like, do you get any analytics from in-store? How many people see your end cap? How many people buy Do you get any analytics from the online sales as well?
A little bit. I mean, they're still a retailer, so they're like really mindful about what they share. But honestly, like the more you grow with them, the more they share because they want you to keep growing. So we do get weekly reports, which are super helpful. When we do our market meetings and sit down with the team, they share kind of like your rankings and where you are in the context. And especially like we launched Air Dry Mousse less than a month ago. I just went into the 61st and Broadway store, completely sold out, both.
Wow.
On the end cap, and we have a tower as well closer to the register. Like, can't find it anywhere. I think we're 300% beating plan on that SKU.
Wow.
So when you have moments like that, they share them. You know, like if you're
And
not
in Sephora, is the goal still like? Do you have a units per store per week that you have to hit for Sephora to keep you in stock?
Yes, it's tricky. It's super tricky because like I have a friend who's from Omaha and she just texted me a photo of the Omaha store, and obviously we move product differently there than Soho, you know? So you kind of like, Elaine, who's my president, always jokes that it's kind of like having a war map with like plans of attack.
Yeah.
So like different doors, you have to be really different. Like you have to be strategic about in different ways. So like California, New York, in Texas, like those doors, we just move through products so quickly. Even San Francisco, where like, you know, we have doors that don't get as much traffic, or like going back to the time and market thing. Like I'm going to go to we have a couple doors in Orlando. Those doors are different. Like they're more touristy doors, and they're also the Disney talent doors. So like they might not know Crown Affair yet.
Right.
Where like girls are walking, you know, the girls from Stanford are going to the Palo Alto store, and like girls from LA are going to the Grove and Century City, and like you can't keep Crown Affair in stock.
Right.
You know, so you really do have to have a plan of attack when it comes to marketing, you know, investing in field teams, your eventing strategy, like really getting creative around local influencers as well, and how you build communities in those places to drive top of funnel awareness to the doors. And then obviously .com is its own thing, and there's a lot of strategies around that. Most of our business is on .com because for the last 2 years, we've only had 56 doors. So so we only have end caps. So usually as a new brand, you go to the next big thing wall. Right. First of all, hair care has way less exposure in store than makeup and skincare. So you're just dealing with a smaller footprint indoors. It's getting so much better, and I'm really excited about it. And all the new doors have hair care in the front. Like hair care kind of went from like the back and like it being like Olaplex basically, and like Living Proof and Moroccan oil, to being this whole new exciting category. So yeah, it's just, and now we have 75 doors. We're gonna be rolling out to 200 doors this fall. So like, it's just a huge focus, the strategy for that.
Yeah. Are you required to drive any website traffic to Sephora, or if you do out-of-home campaigns, do you have to put their logo on that?
We do that. I don't think there's like legal requirements to my knowledge, although I don't fully know, but that is really important to us. And I think with any retailer, whether you're with Sephora or Target or Ulta or Walmart, driving volume there, your early days is everything. Obviously, building your D2C business is the best because the margins are like amazing, and the margins aren't as great when you're working with retailers, but it's how you grow, right? It's like not everybody in Omaha is going to go to crownaffair.com.
Yeah, totally.
Like, and Sephora is the best. To your question of why Sephora.
And they have the best like loyalty program, the best app, shopping experience.
The app is amazing. Like the retention on the app is insane. And if you get opportunities to do like day before exclusives on the app, like you'll crush it.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing. And they're just really good at eventizing. Like even like their stores, we're not in Europe with them yet, but like their store on the Champs-Elysees feels like Disney, you know, and people go to Sephora, and like, it's this whole culture, which is very cool to be a part of.
Yeah, I've definitely caught myself like late night on a weekday. I'll just walk into Sephora just to see what's new or what's happening.
Totally.
Or how they're doing that. But another question I had was, so your products have thousands of reviews on Sephora.com.
Yeah.
Do you guys do anything with that? Are you able to use it on your own site? Do you like scrape them and run it into ChatGPT?
You know, I don't think that we do, is the truth. This is one of those things where I'm like, are we leaving stuff on the table?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. We have a Thanksgiving feast of things we haven't touched yet, which
fair.
is what we need to do.
Totally.
You know, and reviews are really interesting, and this is like a whole conversation, but like you do incentivize people for reviews in those environments because they are really helpful. And Sephora, I think like all retailers, has stats around like if you have over 100 reviews, you get this much more conversion. If you have over 700, whatever it is, like, and they're different ratios actually for hair care and skincare. It is essential to invest in reviews and make that happen. Reviews are such a funny thing because I don't know about you, but like I don't really write reviews.
I never write reviews.
I know. I feel like there's two types of people in the world. I feel this way about commenting as well. Like there are literally two types of people psychologically. It's like people who write reviews and comment on things, and then like the rest of us.
Yeah, in Whoop, there's a daily journal that pops up, and you're supposed to tick everything that, I drank yesterday, I slept good yesterday, I was anxious yesterday. And they say that people either fill out everything or they never fill it out. There's no in between.
No in between.
And I think it's the same for reviews.
Yeah, we should do more of the reviews. I know we've worked on some landing pages that have like pulled in reviews, but I think there's so much more to optimize there that anyone listening, help a sister out.
Yeah. What about like the Sephora community? I've been at a dinner once where I've heard that every quarter they have a meeting with like the creators or influencers that they work with. And they basically ask them like, hey, what are customers asking in your DMs that they want to see more of or less of? Do you guys get any of that insight back through Sephora?
Yeah, there's so many communities. There's the Sephora Squad, which is their group of influencers, which I had the privilege of like meeting all of them when they launched the Squad 2 years ago.
Wow.
And it was so cool. They had me come and do like a QVC on stage presentation. It was so funny. It was like Patrick Ta and like Selena Gomez and then like little old me. I was like,
That's
what
incredible.
is happening here? But the Squad's incredible. They make content for Sephora. They're like really engaged with it. It's amazing to be able to connect with them. There's also the beauty advisors who are on the floor at Sephora who are a wealth of knowledge. Like so much product development is honestly informed from me spending my time with beauty advisors.
Yeah.
And like I'll do 7-hour days at Sephora's. They're like personal appearances. If you're Charlotte Tilbury or Rihanna, like it's a big deal, but it's me, So like I'll say that I'm at the Sephora.
It's an even bigger deal.
No, it's super big, huge deal. No, I'll say that I'm at Sephora at Century City between 12 and 7 p.m. And like people come in and yes, people like want to meet and chat, but like also just spending time with beauty advisors, like especially around like styling products for us, you just see what people are looking for and that's what the In the Kitchen is for. That's the quarterly meeting that they do. So you like sit with your team.
Do they tell you what other products are being bought next to your or like what else are customers buying on their receipt?
Yeah, 100%. And I think with any retailer though, you have to stay really true to your gut. And like with me, it started with this Google Doc and like the 12 things that I loved and swore by. And I still am very intuitive with the product roadmap. And I don't think it's all art and I don't think it's all science. And I think it's about taking that input, and this is where having a great brand and a very strong product philosophy is important because yes, you could be like hair gels are happening, but it's like, what's your take on that?
100%. I'm curious, like what are your thoughts on all these celebrity brands that are popping up left and right? And I mean, I remember being on a call with like a superstar NFL player who was going to launch a hair care brand one day. There was a whole meeting of like 35, 40 people. Then all of a sudden that fizzled away. Then there's another celebrity who launches a huge brand. They find a CM and they get some, white label product and they decide to launch it. But so many of these are now just failing because they never really built brand. They were just a distribution channel. Or B, there was never really like intention behind it in the first place. It was like, oh, I can put my name on this and take some equity and whatever. Yeah. But what are your thoughts on a lot of the celebrity brands you see?
I have so many thoughts. I think there's a handful of great ones, and I'll shout them out first. And those are the people who are hiring excellent teams. The obvious ones. You've got Rihanna with Fenty, and like, Rihanna's an incredible musician. She doesn't know how to formulate foundations in these shade ranges, but she was super intentional about bringing in the right team from day one. And I think the brand would be excellent without her. Obviously, it's so much bigger because of her, and they continue to have these sustained marketing moments because of her. But like, that's really smart. I think it's been interesting because she recently launched hair. It's not at Sephora yet, but pretty recently Beyonce launched hair.
Right.
Like a month or two before. And it's so interesting. I think if you're marketers out there who want to do a side-by-side comparison of how to do it, like that's a great, case study to look at. Generally, though, most celebrity brands are not super intentional. And you're right. They're just either working with big partners. I mean, the Amorous thing is so crazy. All these celebrities were working with Amorous, which is a bigger conglomerate, and they went bankrupt. People were trying to buy back their brands. It was this whole crazy thing if you followed along with that. But also, like, I don't know, you just end up with so much of the same stuff. I get it. Like, I understand if you have an audience, there's a desire to like sell something to them and monetize it. But the truth is like, if the product's not great, it will not be around in 5 to 6 years.
Totally.
Like, it's just not possible. It's frustrating for me. And a lot of my personal work that I'm doing is like not being triggered and not comparing because I am just a person in the world who's not a celebrity or influencer. And it's frustrating, but I understand the desire to do that. I try like everything. Like I test stuff that's out there and most of it's just so mid.
Yeah.
But part of me is like, maybe some people don't want excellent things too. And like, that's okay. And there's a market for that, you know?
Totally. Yeah. No, I've definitely had that thought, but you're so right. There's so many like mediocrely formulated products that come out or just mediocre done. I mean, we've even worked with a celebrity where once, we sent him 2 captions to post on Instagram for launch and he posted both. And in the middle it says, or use this one.
I'm dead.
And it's just like, come on, dude. Like,
yeah.
You got to be all in or it's just, there's no shot this thing works.
I call those pinches of poison.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not going to kill you. It's not like taking a whole vial of poison and dying at once. It's like these little pinches that add up over time. And that's what eventually kills you.
Totally. I'm curious where you think there's underpriced attention. I saw earlier today that the WNBA partnerships are becoming super competitive.
Yeah.
And with your background in brand marketing and partnerships, like where do you think there's underpriced attention?
Well, I think first and foremost, Glossier was early on WNBA. I think they've had a partnership for like at least 3 years, if not more.
Wow.
At this point. They were early on WNBA. Like Emily was still, I think it was pre they were in Sephora. So they've been integrated in that ecosystem and they, I think, just signed today or celebrated today that they're the main sponsor for US basketball,
Wow.
which is apparently separate and something that has to do with the Olympics. I was like kind of looking into it. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Where do I think there's underpriced attention? I do think that in real life experiences are just more important than ever. So whatever that means for you and your brand, whether that's like doing a cafe or a pop-up or just gathering people in a room, like that to me is still the highest ROI to create an experience. That's such a good question. I haven't really thought about it, is the truth.
What are your thoughts on TikTok Shop?
That's a good question too. I'm just like, I think it's really, here's the thing. It's all product market fit. I think it can make sense for a lot of people. And I know brands who have crushed it on there, like crushed it. Those brands, by the way, though, were very native to TikTok. Like they built their audiences on TikTok. They have founders with like the little mic on the product. And it's like, that's their whole ethos. So I think that was like a super natural integration. I can't speak to if it's getting you the highest quality customer because they're just like roulette spinning discounts.
For sure. Yeah.
By the way, though, that's cheaper than acquiring customers now. So I understand it. Like, you know, we're still first purchase profitable. We have a really, really strong AOV. So the way that we've built the business is a little different than like these like quick hit sale moment on TikTok Shop. But it's super important. And I think, honestly, I've said this to my team, like, I think we were a little, I don't want to say behind on TikTok, but I think, like, again, we've definitely left some stuff on the table that if I could go back in time 2 years. Okay, where else is underpriced attention? I got to think on that one. I do think, like, it's funny because it's, like, full circle with celebrity, but I think, like, working with people, I don't want to say older because that sounds terrible, but people who are many years. Like I'm seeing this shift right now. I haven't even watched the Diane von Furstenberg content that's come out recently, but I've had a couple people reference it. Also, Julia Louis-Dreyfus has a podcast and I don't think she interviews anybody under 70 years old.
Wow.
And I think we're going to see this shift. And I was just listening to a podcast with Amy Poehler and she was talking about mentorship and how one of her weaknesses is asking people for help. And she was saying that like she loves being a mentor. And I think everyone on the internet like loves being an expert, whether you're 9 or 19 or whatever. But I actually think we're going to see
Everybody's
shift.
a life coach.
Yeah, everyone's a life coach. I actually think we're going to see this shift of like by 2026, people just wanting people who have real experience and real legitimacy, especially with the AI of it all.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be this very weird shift of like wanting to connect with people who have actually worked and taken time to build things versus like, right? Because the thing is like you heat up really quick, you can burn really quick too. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible and admirable, I think, what people have built with TikTok and some of these high heat channels, but like you just don't have the same foundation.
Totally.
You know?
What about, so your community program it's a mentorship program, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that building a community would be underpriced attention?
100%. I think, so we have a mentorship program called Seedling. It's an 8-week program. Elaine, who's my president, and I started it just after COVID hit because all these graduating seniors were like looking for jobs and internships and we're getting so many inbounds. At the same time, women like us were like, okay, I'm home. I have a lot of time on my hands. You know, I've already donated to these different causes. Like, how do I actually give back? And we decided to open up applications. We posted it on Instagram. I was like, I hope like 10 people apply. Within the 24 hours, we had 250 applications.
Wow.
And Elaine and I sat together. We opened a bottle of wine, put Post-it notes out. We read every application. We exported them to a spreadsheet, and we started pairing people. It was one of the most incredible. I mean, that first pairing was like magic. First of all, I would have killed for some of these people to be my mentors. Like the CMO of Playboy, like the top stylist and the fashion stylist in the world, like incredible women who like kill it in real estate, like so many different industries, amazing beauty founders, pairing them with these young girls who are like, what do I do right now?
Yeah.
That started, and I thought we might do one season. We're already on season 8.
Wow.
It's very insular. It's not about like posting. It's not about product. Totally. It's like this intimate community. We do a kickoff call. We either sometimes do it in person or do it on Zoom. We have a private LinkedIn group where people have met roommates and found jobs.
Wow.
And like, it's very special. I wish I could figure out how to scale it. It's not like super scalable. It's like relatively scalable.
I think that's a part of the allure too. It's like, it's very exclusive.
Totally. And it's very special. And people who have been a part, I mean, we've had seedlings be like, do you guys have like a badge or a seal that I can like put on my LinkedIn to say that I've like been a part of this program? Because it's a really thoughtful program, the whole 8-week course. And it's just nice to be part of like an 8-week course that's like free. Like we obviously don't charge for it. It's just like a thing that we genuinely want to help people grow. And obviously in turn, those people often become customers.
Totally.
And build a, you know, a loyalty with the brand.
Yeah. You're iconic.
Oh,
I love you.
I love you too.
We don't have much more time, but where can people reach out to you? I'm assuming Instagram, LinkedIn.
Yeah, Instagram is good. Diana Cohen, Diana with 2 N's, or Crown Affair.
You'll see the iconic green.
The iconic green. You'll see it there. TikTok as well. I actually like love TikTok comments. So feel free to like ask questions. Also, we didn't even talk about hair care because that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
But if you need hair care guidance, I'm here for that. So send me a note, LinkedIn too. And then crownaffair.com.
And gua sha tips. I bought my gua sha because of your TikTok.
The best. Have you been doing it? You look great and young.
I've been doing it a little bit. I should be doing it more consistently.
We'll do an accountability ritual.
Down. Very down for that. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me.
Anytime.